Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today, I want to talk to you about, are you ready? My favorite Nielsen Symphony number 3, the Sinfonia Espansiva. Now, I have to do a repertoire talk on this symphony, and I'm really sort of churning it around in my brain. And the reason is because it's had a very lucky life on disc. It really has. There are a lot of really, really good performances to choose from. And so I'm a little bit torn as to how to do it. You know, the most famous one, the one that, you know, people get all excited about normally, I mean, traditionally, the reference version was Bernstein. With, what was it, the Danish National Symphony Orchestra, because that was the recording particularly and performance that made Nielsen an international composer. I mean, it tried to anyway. He still really isn't. I mean, you know, he's still, people talk about Nielsen and Sibelius. There's no equivalence there. Sibelius is enormously more popular and more accepted internationally than Nielsen is. And I'm not really sure why, because Nielsen is every bit as good. I mean that. I mean that in all seriousness. He didn't write as much. He didn't write, you know, like the Danish national anthem. You know, he didn't write something like Finlandia, something that was going to grab, you know, the world as a pop hit that would, you know, serve as sort of an entree into a lot of his other pieces. But his music is just incredibly distinctive and individual, and every bit as Danish as Sibelius's is Finnish, if you know that matters, and if we can define those things. And the 6 symphonies are masterworks. They really are, all of them. And I find the Espansiva, the third, to be the one where Nielsen really sort of, you know, found himself in as a modern symphonist. It has, you know, the thing about Nielsen is that he tended to be a conservative in structure and form in some ways. He was the most Beethoven-like of all the later symphonists, of anybody, in the sense that his symphonies have that feeling of struggle, that sense of roughness, that unquenchable energy. And for all those reasons, you'd think they would be more popular than they are, but they aren't, because he expresses that in far more contemporary terms than Beethoven did. He wasn't a classicist per se. And so, you know, in a way, he was too original. I don't know, it's very hard. It's a very interesting thing with Nielsen. He really looks both ways, front and back. The Espansiva, let's take the third, for example, which I've performed. I've played with my community orchestra. We did it, and oh, it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It has fabulous tunes, really wonderful tunes, but he didn't write, for example, sort of dancey, folksy scherzo movements in his symphonies. His scherzos tend to be very developmental. And this is a case in point. The third movement of this symphony is, in a way, the gnarliest movement in the whole symphony. It's a very, very odd, very, very complex, sophisticated movement. It's not like relaxing dance thing at all. But the finale has one of those wonderful hymns, you know, da da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 dum ya dum ya dum ya dum ya dum ya da da dum bum ba. I mean, it's just one of those hummable hymn tune sort of things. And so, you know, like I said, he's a hard composer to pigeonhole. Very, very original. Just as original is the second movement, which is a gorgeous pastoral movement that it's divided up into very, very clean and clear ideas. First, you have a drowsy kind of pastoral meditation for the strings over drone basses and the horns. And then you've got, over a timpani roll, a sort of a fugato type thing in the woodwinds. They enter one after the other, ya da 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 dum ba da 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 dum, and all the woodwinds do their thing, right? And then you've got a really passionate string thing, ya da 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 da, ya da. It's just violins soaring and full of intensity, and all that stuff repeats itself. And then finally, the brass come in with the woodwind thing, and the air clears because it's all somewhat conflicted. The air clears, and miraculously, you have the opening thing with the strings, with the contrapuntal woodwind things played by the woodwinds of the violins against it. All the tunes are combined, but it's all of this beautiful pastoral paradise into which you have a vocalese, a baritone and soprano doing a wordless vocalese, like they're out in nature just humming along with nature. And it's really a surprise. When we did it, we stuck them in the balcony where you couldn't see them. The idea is to hide them somewhere. I've seen performances that do both. They stick them somewhere, or they just leave them in the orchestra. But that's all the only thing they do. They have no words. They just go, ah, like this. The two of them doing a duet. It's so wonderful, but so strange at the same time. It's an amazing piece, an absolutely amazing piece. And it really doesn't get the attention it deserves. It's like so much of Nielsen, frankly. So my performance, the one I love, that just really struck me, I talked about the Bernstein disc with the fifth and the third. It's a great, great disc. It really is. And there are marvelous versions by Blomstedt and Oramo and all the Nielsen people, the usual Nielsen people. Chung did a great one on Biss, and Blomstedt, of course, and yeah. All the Nielsen folks do great Nielsen. But I chose Salonen, Esa-Pekka Salonen. He's not known particularly as a Nielsen guy, although he did a complete cycle. His fourth was the one he started with. It wasn't very good at all, nor was it well recorded. But this one was. This is with the Swedish Radio Symphony Orchestra. That's what the whole symphony cycle is with. And I think this third is great. And the reason I like this third so much is because it's a modernist view of the symphony. It's very sharp, very rhythmic, very detailed, very transparent texturally, unsentimental. And I like the modernity. I really do in this symphony, because Nielsen does look forward as well as back. And there are times when I'm just in the mood to have the more forward-looking aspects emphasized. For example, in the middle of the first movement, there's a waltz. And this waltz is introduced by brass players with tremolos. I can't do it. They go like that, and the notes go like this. It's really rather cool sounding. It's jazz effect. A modern jazz effect. That raunchy jazz effect that we hear so often in contemporary music. Well, Nielsen does it here. It's not something that any composers had done before that, I think, or really. You hear it in Strauss's Don Quixote for the sheep. He has everybody playing tremolos for the bleating of sheep. But here the trumpets have that sort of tremolo effect, and Salonen brings it out. That's just one tiny, tiny little example, but I like hearing all of these wonderful little details, and what can I say? I love this performance. It's my fave. It's Dave's faves, and this is my fave. I may not be yours because, like I said, there's so many good ones that have their own qualities. But for me, this one is special, and it has a special place in the cockles of my heart for that reason. So keep on listening, friends. Go listen to your Nielsen 3 one way or another. It's such a great piece. Take care.